the Western European tradition, we tend to think of genders as pretty neatly divided between male and female. Starting with Adam and Eve, many world cultures, including Native American cultures, don't have such a neat division. There is some movement between genders related to both the way people present and the way people relate to each other sexually. We think we know there is a typical male and a typical female, but the fact is, almost everyone diverges from those typical qualities. What is our history with transgender, and what are our responsibilities towards this part of our society? Transgender people have been a part of human history since the beginning. For example, in the ancient Hindu scriptures, Mahabharata, there are two third-gender characters, Brahmanala and Sakandi. They are main characters throughout the scriptures. There is even a hermaphrodite deity in Hinduism, Ardhanarishvara, a unique deity who is half male and half female. Ardhanarishvara is one of many interesting features and characters of Shiva. The next time you see someone with androgynous features, remember that ancient Hindu people believe this person has been blessed by Lord Ardhanarishvara. From the Hindu Shiva to the Akan and Shana tribes of Africa, the Shinto of medieval Japan, and the Aborigines shamanistic religion of Australia, the shamans of the Pacific Islanders, the eunuchs for the royals of China, and the scriptures in the Abrahamic religions. They have all worshipped and celebrated not only transgender gods and deities, ideas of transgender people, but some have celebrated transgender people themselves. However, not all history has been kind to transgender people. In Europe, one of the earliest, most famous documentation of transgender was of Emperor Elagabalus. He had offered vast sums of money to any surgeon who could perform reproductive reconstructive surgery. His head was therefore cut off, and his body was dragged through the streets of Rome on March 11, 222. Another known, publicly prosecuted transgender person was Rolando Ronquillo in 1354. It was said he had breasts, but looked and acted like a woman. After his wife died, Rolando took to women's clothes. At this time, the city's fathers were determined to clean up the city. Rolando was arrested, brought before the Signory, and was ordered to be burnt between the columns of justice. Her sin was being transgender. During the 1500s, the Spanish had no tolerance for transgender people. So when Spanish conquistador Vasco Núñez de Balboa discovered what he claimed was a colony of cross-dressing males in present-day Panama, he slaughtered them in October 1513. Many people do not know, but in April of 1629, the U.S. court ruled third gender is legal. The General Court ruled that a person who is a man and a woman is to be identified by the other colonists as such, and was to wear specified items of male and female clothing. Lord Cornbury arrived in Manhattan, May 3, 1702, to be the Governor General of New York. He would create scandal by publicly cross-dressing. May 20th, 1782, Deborah Sampson, the first known transgender U.S. soldier, joined the American Army under the name of Robert Shirtliff. He had previously fought in the Continental Army. His biological sex was discovered the following year. He was honorably discharged in 1783. With the help of Paul Revere, Sampson received the pension of £34 starting in 1792. Dr. William Hammond delivered a paper to the American Neurological Association on a disease which makes males believe themselves to be females. As an example, he spoke of Native Americans who lived as the opposite sex. He delivered the paper on Two-Spirit Native Americans on June 23, 1882.
In Navajo teaching in the old traditional world, there were 4 basic genders. The first one was that women are the first gender because Navajo is a matrilineal society. Men is the second gender, and third gender is the Natle, born as a male person but functioned in the role of a girl in early childhood and functions more in the role of a woman in adulthood. And it's just the opposite for the fourth gender, where they were born biologically female but functioned the role of a boy in early childhood and matured into a man and conducts their life in that.
The most famous Two-Spirit known in recent history was Wewa. Wewa was a towering 6-foot-tall Zuni princess. She was a local celebrity and mingled with politicians, government officials, and the local elite. Her role in Washington was a cultural ambassador. She was seen in a charity event at the National Theater before important congressmen and President Cleveland himself. Washington never thought twice about the Zuni visitor being a woman. But in fact, Wewa was born a man. Wewa grew up as an individual who combined male and female traits in a socially recognized surgender role. Two-Spirit people often held honored and influential positions. Two-Spirit have been documented in every part of the Americas. Speakers of every language group and in every kind of tribe, from the hunters of the Arctic to the foragers of native California, the Pueblo farmers of Southwest, the nomadic warrior hunters of the Great Plains. Our modern culture is now looking back at its native teachers and understanding the honor and depths of transgender roles in historic America. From transgender in Tampa, Florida, to the A cult in Myanmar, the Ashtime of Ethiopia, or the Chukchi in Siberia, from Skopje in Russia, the Sakarta in Madagascar, or the Katoi in Thailand. Transgender people are all over our world, have been a part of our history since the beginning, and it is our responsibility to continue having dialogue about this part of our society. It is our right to have this very rich and vibrant part of our culture embraced and acknowledged.
In my opinion, the responsibilities of the transgender community are exactly the same as the responsibilities of any other citizen of the country or the planet. As human beings, we all have certain responsibilities. I think as a community itself, I would like to see the transgender community learn to advocate for itself more. We have the responsibility to show those around us that there's nothing wrong with us, we're just like everyone else, and that we deserve the same rights and the opportunity to practice our responsibilities as well. For the purposes of Transaction Florida, which is Florida's only state-level transgender advocacy group, we use the umbrella term of transgender to include anyone outside of society's the social binary of gender. So anyone that's outside of how society defines male or female.
Hallmarks that we're seeing with queer youth today is that they are much more fluid in their thinking and their identities, which I think is fantastic. There was a fascinating tug of war in the LGBT community. He was gay, no, he was transgender, da-da-da. And I basically, once I really learned by talking to his mother and talking to his family and talking to the people who knew him, said he was Fred, you know, and sometimes he was Frederica, and sometimes he was FC, and sometimes he was Beyonce. You know, didn't want a label. Wanted to wake up in the morning and say, who am I going to be today? You know, how many people have the wherewithal and the self-esteem and the pride to do that?